On December 7th, 1989, Gojo Satoru is born, and the world of Jujutsu will never be the same. Early in his life, Gojo lived a somewhat sheltered existence. He was heavily protected upon being born with the 6 eyes, as historically, Kenjaku would make an effort to kill every 6 eyes user in their infancy after almost dying to 2 of them. This means Gojo's life was at risk from the second he was born, but it only gets more chaotic from here. During his childhood and early teen life, Gojo mastered 2 parts of his limitless technique as well as Falling Blossom of Emotion. His skill at Jujutsu became immediately apparent as he learned these techniques with very little issue, and it was also around the same time that his high intelligence became apparent as well. This led to Gojo being hailed as a prodigy of Jujutsu, quickly rising to become among the strongest sorcerers on the planet at just the age of 16. He would enroll in Jujutsu Tech Tokyo in the same year as Geto Suguru and Shoko Ieri. Over his first year, he would grow close with both of them, but especially with Geto, as he was the only other student in the school that could rival Gojo's power. The duo would form a friendly rivalry and would name themselves the Strongest, but in their second year, their friendship would be deeply tested, as Master Tengen would request their assistance in the recovery of the Plasma Star vessel. This mission would be the first of many failures for Gojo. The duo would first face down the cursed user group Q, who kidnapped the Plasma Star vessel. After quickly defeating the kidnappers, Gojo and Geto would meet up with Riko, the Plasma Star vessel. They then began the next step in their mission, which was safely returning her to the Star Corridor for assimilation. Along the way, they would have to fight off multiple independent sorcerers who were all interested in the bid placed on Riko by Toji Zenin, who was also in pursuit of Riko. As a result, Gojo and Geto would take Riko to Okinawa for a couple of days to keep her safe. All the while, Gojo kept his infinity up and his 6 eyes active to stay alert. Doing this for such an extended period led to him being generally fatigued by the time they got back to Jujutsu High School, which is exactly when Toji strikes, stabbing Gojo in the chest the second his infinity goes down. Gojo instructs Geto to take Riko to the Star Corridor while he deals with Toji, but things do not go his way, as Toji came with a near-perfect plan to counter Gojo's abilities. He limited the effectiveness of the 6 eyes with fly heads and then broke through infinity with the inverted Spear of Heaven. He tore through Gojo's body with no issue and left him to die. Toji would then go kill Riko and gravely injure Geto, completing his contract with the Star Religious Group. While on his deathbed, Gojo thought only of reverse curse technique and committed his whole being to understanding it. He was successful, allowing him to heal himself and face down Toji again with 2 new tools, red and purple, which was more than enough to handily give himself the win. He then goes to recover Riko's body and meets up with Geto, where Gojo asks Geto if he should kill everyone there. He says he probably wouldn't feel anything if they did it right then and there, but Geto declines, saying that there has to be a reason behind every killing. Unfortunately, this is the last time we see this side of Geto's character. After the mission, Gojo quickly mastered reverse curse technique, allowing him to constantly run infinity while keeping his brain fresh. He also mastered red and rose to become the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer in the modern era. Around the same time, Geto murders a village of non-sorcerers and his own parents, and upon hearing this, Gojo is distraught. He cannot comprehend why Geto would do this. Even after seeing each other in person and talking outside of a KFC, they do not see eye to eye, and they end up going their separate ways for the next decade. Gojo faced 3 failures on this mission. The first was his failure to protect Riko, the second was his loss to Toji, and the third is his failure to save Geto from himself. That third failure will affect Gojo for the rest of his life. Over the next decade, Gojo would play a major role in hunting cursed spirits around the globe. At some point, he would also become a teacher at Jujutsu High School, teaching a number of students including Hikari, Kirara, Maki, Inumaki, and Panda. In 2017, reports of a cursed child would arise, and Gojo would meet this child, Yuta, and convince him to join Jujutsu High School in order to learn how to control Rika, the cursed spirit attached to him. Geto would also gain interest in Yuta as he believed Rika would give him enough power to kill Gojo. While it is apparent to us now that Rika would not be enough to give Geto an edge over Gojo, when Jujutsu Kaisen 0 was written, the power system and Gojo's abilities were not completely fleshed out, so it's likely that he was substantially weaker in the prequel, which is where Geto's beliefs come from. Gojo would take the center role in training Yuta, showing him how to imbue his katana with cursed energy and sending him on missions with other students like Maki and Inumaki. These missions would accomplish their goal of strengthening Yuta, but they would also increase Geto's interest in the student, to the point that he would end up visiting Jujutsu High School and announcing the Night Parade of 100 Demons, where he plans to unleash thousands of cursed spirits into Shinjuku and Kyoto. This attack would require the full attention of Jujutsu Society, and as a result, Jujutsu High School would be left undefended, allowing Geto to get inside to face down Yuta. He loses, but he does get to escape down an alleyway where he runs into Gojo. They have a quick talk, and during their discussion, it becomes apparent that Gojo still respects Geto and believes that he was a principled man. Even after everything, Geto is still the one and only best friend Gojo ever had. And then Gojo does the dirty job of killing Geto, but he did not dispose of Geto's body properly, as he wanted to spare Shoko of the grief of having to deal with that. As a result, Kenjaku was able to obtain Geto's body. Not long after these these events, Gojo just happens to stop and check in on Megumi's mission. To his surprise, he finds a human capable of acting as a vessel for Sukuna. Gojo then knocks out the vessel, Yuji, and takes him back to Jujutsu High School. He convinces the higher-ups that Yuji should live in order to eventually kill Sukuna and rid the world of the King of Curses. So Yuji joins Megumi and Nobara as the new first years of Jujutsu High School, where they are taught and trained by Gojo. After a particularly nasty mission, Yuji ends up dying, and while Gojo mourns his death, he talks with Ijichi about how the elders of society should never be able to take away the joys of adolescence from the youth. This sentiment likely comes from the intense missions and requirements he had to abide to as the strongest sorcerer, all at the age of just 16. Upon Yuji's resurrection, Gojo makes the decision to keep Yuji's life a secret, as he wants to keep the students safe from the higher-ups of Jujutsu Society who Gojo believes were responsible for the raised intensity of the previous mission. He would then train Yuji in secret, teaching him the basics of how cursed energy works. One night, while on the way to meet Masamichi, Gojo gets interrupted by an unregistered special grade cursed spirit, the disaster curse Jogo. Gojo quickly decimates the curse and uses the battle as an opportunity to teach Yuji about domains. After decapitating Jogo, Gojo learns he is allied to other cursed spirits, and for the first time in his life, Gojo thinks things are getting interesting. Over the next few months, Gojo continues to train Yuji and prepares for the exchange event, which includes a conversation with Gakuganji, where Gojo tells him that times are changing and that the new age will be stronger than the current one, before implying that he plans to split off from the traditional world of Jujutsu. And shortly after, the exchange event starts. Gojo doesn't play a huge role in the event as it is focused on the students, but he does swoop in at the end to dismantle Juzo and almost kill Hanami. He then talks with the rest of the staff about how Hanami and the others got through the barrier. Something isn't quite sitting right with Gojo, as he doesn't quite understand the motivation to steal Sukuna's fingers. But his train of thought is interrupted by Masamichi suggesting they cancel the exchange event. Gojo says it's up to the students if they want to continue. They do, so they continue to the next stage, which is baseball. For the next few months, Gojo works internationally on a few different missions, until October 31st, where Gojo would be summoned to Shibuya by the unregistered cursed spirits. After descending to the bottom level of the subway, Gojo enters combat with Jogo, Hanami, and Chozo, where the cursed spirits reveal they have a new way to get around infinity, which is domain amplification. As a result, Gojo decides to fight using just his cursed energy and hand-to-hand combat. This baits Hanami into using her technique as she believes that it is most optimal. But Gojo takes advantage of this by pulling out her eyes and then destroying her with pure cursed energy. Gojo then chases Jogo through the basement before Mahito arrives on a train with 1,000 transfigured humans. Chaos breaks out as non-sorcerers are being massacred by the monsters. As a result, Gojo has no choice but to open his domain, but he does it for just 0.2 seconds. This causes everyone within his radius to feel the effects of Infinite Void without actually affecting the non-sorcerers too badly. While everyone is stunned, Gojo gets to work, killing all 1,000 transfigured humans in just under 6 minutes. This task pushes Gojo to his physical limit, but he wouldn't get any time to rest, as immediately after eliminating the last transfigured human, Kenjaku would open the prison realm and reveal himself to Gojo. Seeing the body of his best friend alive in front of him, Gojo freezes, and 3 years worth of memories flood into his brain. The trap works, and Gojo is sealed. Inside the prison realm, he is incapable of using cursed energy or making any movements, but he's not really worried as he has faith in everyone around him. From here we get into the events of the manga, where 19 days later, Gojo is unsealed at the bottom of the ocean. His unsealing causes a small earthquake, and Gojo immediately goes to Morgeto's body by killing Kenjaku, but he's interrupted by Sukuna, who is now in Megumi's body. Unfazed, Gojo quickly suppresses a sneak attack from Uraume before agreeing to fight Sukuna on December 24th. He promises to win, as having 2 death anniversaries on the same day would be hard to remember. We then fast forward to the day of the fight, and it seems like Gojo has patched up his relationship with Gakuganji. He preps for battle by reciting a chant to strengthen his technique and using Utahime's ability to power up even more, before launching a 200% hollow purple across Shinjuku. This signals the beginning of the fight, and after some trash talk, Gojo and Sukuna engage. They start with close combat, fighting and destroying buildings as Gojo uses Infinity and Sukuna uses Dismantle, until Sukuna reveals that he can now use Domain Amplification as well. They defy gravity as they fight in a falling building before the Battle of Domains begins. Both of their domains are equal in strength, however, that's only inside Gojo's barrier. The effective area of Sukuna's domain extends far beyond that and can easily destroy Gojo's barrier from the outside. This subjects Gojo to the endless slashing held within the radius of Sukuna's domain, but between the 6 eyes, simple domain, and reverse curse technique, Gojo survives and even recovers his curse technique early, which he uses to cast another domain. The second round begins, and this time Gojo focuses his domain's strength on the outside of the barrier barrier to prevent external damage. While inside, Sukuna reveals he can use domain amplification while in his domain, but this round doesn't last long either, as Sukuna created a binding vow negating his sure hit inside the domain in order to hit harder outside the barrier, meaning Gojo's domain once again collapses. But once again, Gojo survives and quickly recovers his curse technique. This time, he expands his domain past the effective range of Sukuna's before shrinking it down to the size of a basketball. This time, the domains collapse simultaneously, as Gojo hurt Sukuna enough to make sustaining a domain impossible, and Sukuna damaged Gojo's domain from the outside. They fight without domains for a little bit while they recover and seem to be enjoying their battle. Gojo's nose bleeds slightly before they both expand their domains again, and this time it looks like Sukuna comes out more damaged than before. They reopen their domains again, with Gojo opening his domain 0.01 seconds faster, letting Unlimited Void connect to Sukuna. Gojo damages Sukuna enough to collapse Malevolent Shrine, meaning that Sukuna has to take the full brunt of Unlimited Void until Mahoraga shows up and destroys Gojo's domain, proving that the Zenin trump card has already adapted to Unlimited Void. Gojo's domain collapses, and he notices that Sukuna appears to be fine despite being subjected to Unlimited Void. He quickly realizes that Sukuna put that damage onto Megumi's soul, but Gojo sees a path to victory regardless. He tries to open his domain again and fails. This is because he has sustained brain damage by restoring his curse technique with reverse curse technique, as it requires destroying and rebuilding the part of his brain that his curse technique is etched into. Sukuna plans to open his domain and finish him off, until it is revealed that he also cannot use his domain because of the brain damage from Unlimited Void. With no domains available, both sorcerers start with close combat again. Gojo seems to quickly gain an advantage using blue to increase the effectiveness of his attacks and sending Sukuna through the ground multiple times. But as the battle continues, Mahoraga's wheel continues to turn, and Sukuna continues to adapt to Gojo's Limitless. Gojo starts using red and blue more liberally and lands a close-range red on Sukuna. This does a good amount of damage despite Sukuna using domain amplification. Sukuna accuses Gojo of getting desperate, but Gojo informs him that red has not ended yet, and at that moment it finishes its trip around the building and hits Sukuna from behind, while Gojo prepares a blue from the front. These two impact at the same time along with a black flash, knocking Sukuna out where he stands. Unfortunately, even unconscious, the wheel still spins, and Mahoraga is summoned from the shadows, now adapted to infinity. It quickly lands a slash on Gojo, and this is the first time in the battle that he seriously thinks about the possibility of losing. Sukuna tries to let Mahoraga do the majority of the work, but Gojo forces him out of the shadows. He decides to continue to fight from a range, trying to create openings for Mahoraga rather than fighting for himself. This is not successful, so he decides to summon a third Shikigami instead, a Jito. Even in a 3v1, Gojo still does a fine job against his opponents, until Sukuna makes a request of Mahoraga, asking the Shikigami to show him what it can do. Mahoraga then slices off Gojo's arm from a distance, but Gojo remains confident while destroying a Jito and simultaneously healing his arm. Gojo then lands what appears to be a third black flash on both Mahoraga and Sukuna before beginning a chant to strengthen red. He then uses blue to speed up his arrival and knock back Mahoraga to prevent the Shikigami from destroying the orb. Sukuna also tries to use his makeshift piercing blood to destroy the orb, but Gojo prevents this by chanting to restore his strength, and then he begins the chant for Hollow Purple as red and blue collide. The attack works, destroying Mahoraga, heavily injuring Sukuna, and destroying Shinjuku. But the ability Mahoraga used earlier was not Sukuna's. It was the ability to cut through space itself, and Sukuna gained that ability upon seeing it executed once. This was enough to cleave Gojo in half. While lying on the ground, Gojo would hallucinate a conversation with Geto, Nanami, and Haibara. He reveals that he can die happy with his efforts, and die happy that he got to go all out, but he is still a bit unsatisfied as Geto wasn't there cheering him on. At this point in time, it seems pretty likely that Gojo has no way to survive this. After bleeding out on the ground, he must choose to go north or go south after his failure to defeat Sukuna. Despite being the strongest sorcerer of his era, Gojo's life is dotted with failures. Each one is an integral part of his character that shows that strength is not the only thing that matters in the world of Jujutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and if you already are, maybe drop a membership, but no pressure on that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week for another video.